Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has declared autism an epidemic in the United States. And pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly says a new GLP-1 pill could replace weight loss injectables like Ozempic. Good morning, I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. A federal judge says the Trump administration is likely in criminal contempt of a judicial order. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg says the administration purposefully ignored his order to bring back U.S. planes carrying deported migrants to a prison in El Salvador. NPR's Adrian Florido says the Trump administration now faces a choice.
Boasberg gave the government till next week to do one of two things. He said it could, in his words, reassert custody of the men it deported so they can challenge their deportations in federal courts. They are still in that Salvadoran prison, and many of their families have denied that they are gang members. If the government chooses not to do that, though, Boasberg said, then he wants the names of the specific government officials who ignored his order. He said he will force them to testify, and if necessary, he will appoint a lawyer to criminally prosecute them for contempt, and they could face fines or prison.
NPR's Adrian Florido reporting. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen is in El Salvador. He says that Salvadoran officials have refused his request to release a man mistakenly deported from Maryland to a Salvadoran prison. NPR's Claudia Grisales has more.
Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Maryland Democrat, said the Salvadoran vice president also refused his request to visit with Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. Regardless, Van Hollen said more U.S. officials will travel to fight for his release.
I may be the first United States senator to visit El Salvador on this issue, but there will be more, and there will be more members of Congress coming.
Van Hollen argued against the administration's claims that Abrego Garcia has ties to gang activity. He was granted protection from deportation by a judge in 2019. The administration admitted in legal proceedings the deportation was a mistake, but have since refused a Supreme Court decision upholding an order they must facilitate the man's return. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has declared that autism is epidemic in the U.S. NPR's Rob Stein reports Kennedy has vowed to quickly identify the cause.
Kennedy is citing new statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as evidence that autism is epidemic in the U.S. The number of children diagnosed with autism increased from 1 out of 36 to 1 out of 31 kids between 2020 and 2022, according to the new CDC report. Kennedy says he's launching a new research project to identify an environmental toxin that he thinks is to blame. Independent experts say the autism numbers are up because of better diagnoses, and the cause is likely a complex combination of factors, including genetic predisposition. Rob Stein, NPR News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Paris today. He'll meet with President Emmanuel Macron and the French foreign minister. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports Rubio is accompanied by President Trump's Russia-Ukraine envoy, Steve Witkoff.
In a statement, the French presidency said Macron will meet with the American delegation to discuss, quote, putting an end to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. But the U.S. and Europe are farther apart than ever on how to end the war. Europeans are stunned as the Trump administration continues to treat Russian President Vladimir Putin as an honest broker, even as the Kremlin continues to shell Ukrainian cities, killing scores of people. President Macron has said Europe can never let Russia win the war in Ukraine. France and Britain say they are ready to lead a European peacekeeping force in Ukraine in the event of a truce. Putin has already rejected any such force. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
Leaders in California are asking a federal court to halt President Trump's tariffs. They argue in a lawsuit that Trump exceeded his authority in imposing them. From member station KQED in San Francisco, Marisa Lagos has more.
Governor Gavin Newsom says the 10% across-the-board tariffs, as well as higher tariffs levied against Mexico, Canada, and China, are not legal and are hurting both businesses and consumers. He appeared at a family-owned almond farm in California's Central Valley Wednesday morning.
No state is poised to lose more than the state of California. So that's our state of mind. And that's why we're asserting ourselves on behalf of 40 million Americans.
The suit argues Trump needs congressional authorization for actions with such broad economic consequences. White House spokesman Kush Desai responded in a statement saying Newsom should be focusing on California's problems. For NPR News, I'm Marisa Lagos in San Francisco.
Medications known as GLP-1 have revolutionized the way that doctors treat weight loss. That started largely with Ozempic. It's Novo Nordisk's blockbuster diabetes drug. But most of the current options on the market are injectables. These can be intimidating for patients to use. NPR's Sydney Lepkin reports a new GLP-1 pill is now on the horizon.
Eli Lilly is announcing that early results from a phase 3 clinical trial of its GLP-1 pill show it reduced participants' A1C, a measure of blood sugar control, better than placebo. The trial lasted 40 weeks and was only for people with type 2 diabetes. According to the company, the safety and efficacy was consistent with its injectable GLP-1 drugs, Zepbound and Mounjaro. The once-daily pill also helped patients lose up to 16 pounds. The company plans to report the results at the American Diabetes Association conference and publish them in a peer-reviewed medical journal later this year. Sydney Lepkin, NPR News.
The Trump administration is proposing to limit the definition of what it means to harm an endangered species. NPR's Jonathan Lambert explains a change could make it easier to damage habitats that endangered species use.
The Endangered Species Act prohibits the take of endangered species. By law, take means to harass, harm, pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, kill, trap, capture, or collect a species. For decades, federal agencies have interpreted this definition to include harming the habitats endangered species depend on, since habitat loss is the biggest driver of species loss. Now, the Trump administration wants to narrow that interpretation. Their proposal would only prohibit harmful actions directed immediately against a particular animal, not their habitat. The change could make it easier for developers to build on habitats used by endangered species. Jonathan Lambert, NPR News.
Scientists have detected chemical signatures in the atmosphere of a distant planet. These could suggest the presence of life. As NPR's Nell Greenfield-Boyce reports, some scientists are excited, but others are skeptical of the finding.
The planet orbits a star about 124 light-years away. Researchers used the James Webb Space Telescope to study the tiny fraction of starlight that filtered through its atmosphere. Their analysis detected an abundance of sulfur-based gases that, on Earth, are made only by life, such as marine microbes. Astronomer Niku Madhusudan is with the University of Cambridge.
To be very frank, it was astounding. I had never imagined that this is what we would see.
He says this planet could be an ocean world teeming with alien life, but the detection of these gases needs to be confirmed, and there may be unrecognized ways of making them without life. Nell Greenfield-Boyce, NPR News.
And I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News from Washington.